You are nothing." The words echoed across the grand hall of the Riverside Pack House, and Thea felt each syllable like a physical blow. Cassandra stood before her, perfectly manicured hand extended, palm up, waiting for Thea to hand over the tray of crystal glasses she had been carrying. The entire hall had gone silent. Every wolf in attendance, dressed in their finest for the arrival of the Alpha King, turned to watch. Thea's hands trembled as she held the tray, knowing that any moment of hesitation would be seen as defiance, and defiance from someone like her was unthinkable. "Did you not hear me?" Cassandra's voice was sweet, poisonous honey that drew every eye in the room. "I said you are nothing, a wolfless omega who cannot even shift. Why the moon goddess allows creatures like you to exist is beyond comprehension." Thea lowered her gaze and extended the tray forward. It was easier this way. Easier to be invisible, to let the words wash over her without reaction, to survive. She had learned this lesson over 23 years of living in the Riverside Pack. She had no family name to protect her, no wolf to give her strength, no beauty to grant her favor. She was, in every measurable way, exactly what Cassandra said. Nothing. Cassandra took the tray with a cruel smile, then deliberately tilted it. The glasses slid, crystals shattering against the marble floor in an explosion of sound that made several people gasp. The red wine inside spread across the white stone. Like blood, like an omen, like a promise of things to come. "How clumsy," Cassandra said, her voice carrying across the hall. "Clean this up immediately. The Alpha King will be here within the hour, and I will not have his first impression of our pack marred by your incompetence." Thea dropped to her knees without a word. She had done this before. She would do it again. This was her life, her role, her place in the world. As she picked up shards of broken crystal, careful not to cut her fingers, she could hear the whispers starting around her. Pathetic. Why does Alpha Marcus even keep her here? She should have been cast out years ago. At least she knows her place. The sting of their words had dulled over the years, but it had never disappeared entirely. Thea worked quickly, efficiently, her movements practiced from countless similar scenes. She gathered the broken glass into her apron, used a cloth to soak up the wine, and tried to make herself as small as possible while doing so. That was when she felt it. A shift in the air, a change in pressure, something that made every hair on her body stand on end. The great doors of the hall swung open, and silence fell like an executioner's blade. He had arrived early. Alpha King Damon Blackthorn stepped into the hall, and the world seemed to reorganize itself around his presence. He was tall, powerfully built, with dark hair that fell just past his collar, and eyes that were the color of molten amber. He wore black, simple but perfectly tailored, and he moved with the fluid grace of a predator who had never known fear. Behind him came his beta and a small contingent of warriors, but Thea barely registered them. Every instinct in her body, wolf or not, recognized what he was. Power. Pure. Undiluted. Terrifying power. Alpha Marcus rushed forward, his own considerable presence somehow diminished in comparison. "Alpha King, you honor us with your presence. We did not expect you for another hour. Please, forgive us for not being properly prepared to receive you." Damon's gaze swept the hall, taking in everything with those unnerving amber eyes. Thea froze where she knelt on the floor, surrounded by broken glass and wine stains, hoping desperately that he would not notice her. Invisibility had always been her greatest protection, but his eyes found her anyway. They locked onto her kneeling form with an intensity that made her breath catch in her throat. For a moment, just a moment, the entire world seemed to stop. Thea felt something she had never felt before, a pull, a recognition, a sense of inevitability that terrified her more than any of Cassandra's cruelties ever had. Then Damon looked away, and the moment shattered like the crystal at her feet. "There is no need for apologies, Alpha Marcus," Damon said, his voice deep and commanding, the kind of voice that expected obedience and always received it. "I prefer to see a pack as it truly is, not as it pretears itself to be seen." Alpha Marcus laughed, but there was nervousness in it. Of course, of course. Please allow me to introduce my daughter, Cassandra. She has been overseeing the preparations for the unification ceremony. Cassandra stepped forward, and Thea had to admit that she was breathtaking. Golden hair that cascaded down her back, blue eyes that sparkled with intelligence and ambition, a figure that was both elegant and strong. She wore a gown of deep emerald that complemented her coloring perfectly, and when she smiled at the Alpha King, it was dazzling. Alpha King Blackthorn, Cassandra said, her voice warm and welcoming, so different from the venom she had directed at Thea moments before. It is an honor to finally meet you. I have heard so many stories about your strength and wisdom. Damon inclined his head politely, but his expression remained neutral. The honor is mine, Miss Cassandra. Your father has spoken highly of your capabilities. Thea used the distraction to gather the last of the broken glass and begin backing toward the servants' entrance. If she could just slip away unnoticed, if she could just disappear before anyone remembered she existed, perhaps this night would not end in further humiliation. But as she rose to her feet, careful to keep her head down and her movements small, she felt those amber eyes on her again. She did not look up. She did not dare. She simply continued her retreat, praying to the moon goddess who had never answered a single one of her prayers that she would make it through those doors without incident. You there? Damon's voice cut through the hall like a blade, and Thea's blood turned to ice. Stop! She stopped. Her feet simply stopped moving, as if her body understood what her mind was still struggling to process. The Alpha King had spoken to her, directly, in front of everyone. Slowly, so slowly, Thea turned back toward the center of the hall. She kept her gaze fixed on the floor, on her worn shoes, on anything but the man who had just addressed her. Look at me, Damon said. And there was something in his voice. Not anger, not contempt, but something else. Something she could not identify. Thea raised her eyes. It took every ounce of courage she possessed, but she raised her eyes and met that amber gaze. The world tilted. Everything she thought she knew, everything she believed about herself and her place in this world, suddenly felt uncertain, fragile, wrong. Damon was staring at her with an expression she could not read. His entire attention focused on her as if nothing else in the hall existed, as if she was not invisible after all. What is your name? He asked, and his voice had gone softer, almost gentle, which somehow made the question even more terrifying. Thea, she whispered, barely able to force the word past her lips. Just Thea. Just Thea, he repeated, and the way he said her name made something inside her chest tighten painfully. No family name? No designation? She shook her head, unable to speak, unable to understand what was happening or why the most powerful alpha in existence was asking her these questions. Cassandra stepped forward, her smile still perfect, but her eyes sharp with warning. She is just an Omega, Alpha King. Wolfless, actually. She has served the pack for many years in various capacities. Surely there is no need to concern yourself with such matters when there is so much to discuss about the unification ceremony. Damon did not look at Cassandra. He did not look at Alpha Marcus or the Beta standing beside him, or any of the dozens of pack members watching this scene unfold with growing confusion and fascination. He looked only at Thea, and in his eyes, she saw something that made absolutely no sense. Recognition. Wolfless, he said quietly, as if testing the word. And yet, I feel her. The hall erupted into whispers, shocked murmurs that grew louder with each passing second. Thea felt panic rising in her chest, felt the weight of every eye upon her, felt the danger of this moment even if she did not fully understand it. That is impossible, Alpha King, Alpha Marcus said, his voice strained. She has no wolf. She has been tested multiple times. There is nothing inside her but human weakness. Damon finally tore his gaze from Thea and turned to Alpha Marcus, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop by 10 degrees. Are you suggesting that I do not know what I feel? He asked, his voice deadly quiet. Alpha Marcus paled. No, of course. Not, Alpha King. I only meant that perhaps there has been some mistake, some misunderstanding. Thea has been with this pack since she was a child. If she possessed a wolf, we would know. Would you? Damon asked, and there was something dangerous in his tone now. Tell me, Alpha Marcus, when was the last time anyone in this pack paid attention to her at all? The silence that followed was absolute. Thea wanted to run, wanted to disappear, wanted to wake up from this nightmare where she had somehow become the center of attention in the most catastrophic way possible. But she stood frozen, trapped in the moment, unable to move or speak or do anything but watch as her entire world unraveled. If you are enjoying this story, do not forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories like this one. Damon turned back to Thea, and this time he took a step toward her, then another. The crowd parted before him like water, creating a clear path between them. Thea's heart hammered against her ribs. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but she was rooted to the spot, caught in the gravity of whatever was happening. When he stood before her, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact, he did something that would change everything. He knelt. The Alpha King, ruler of all the packs, the most powerful wolf in existence, lowered himself to one knee before her. The gasps that echoed through the hall were like physical things, waves of shock that crashed over everyone present. Cassandra made a sound like a wounded animal. Alpha Marcus stumbled backward as if he had been struck, and Thea simply stood there, trembling, tears beginning to stream down her face without her permission, staring at the man kneeling before her as if she was something precious, something worthy, something more than nothing. Forgive me, Damon said, his voice carrying clearly, despite its softness, for taking so long to find you. He reached out and took her hand, the one still clutching the cloth stained with wine, and brought it to his lips. The kiss he placed on her knuckles was gentle, reverent, and it sent electricity racing through her entire body, waking things inside her that she had never known existed. I do not understand, Thea whispered, her voice breaking. I am nobody. I am nothing. You are everything, Damon replied, his amber eyes burning with an intensity that scared and thrilled her in equal measure. You are my mate. The words hung in the air like a pronouncement of destiny, and the hall erupted into chaos. Cassandra was shouting something, her beautiful face twisted with rage. Alpha Marcus was trying to restore order, his voice rising above the din. Pack members were arguing, some supporting what the Alpha King claimed, others denying it vehemently. But Thea heard none of it. She heard only the pounding of her own heart, felt only the warmth of Damon's hand still holding hers, saw only the truth in his eyes as he gazed up at her. That is impossible, she breathed. I have no wolf. I cannot be anyone's mate, let alone yours. And yet, here we are, Damon said, rising to his feet but not releasing her hand. Tell me, Thea, do you feel it? The pull, the recognition, the sense that something fundamental has just shifted in your world? She wanted to lie. She wanted to deny it, to push him away, to retreat invisibility back where she was safe, where she knew the rules, where she understood her place. But she could not, because he was right. She felt it. She felt something she had no name for, something that terrified and exhilarated her, something that made her feel more alive than she had ever felt in her entire unremarkable existence. Yes, she admitted, the word barely a whisper. I feel it. Damon smiled, and it transformed his entire face from intimidating to breathtaking. Good, he said. That is very good. This is insane. Cassandra's voice cut through the moment like a knife. She pushed through the crowd, her perfect composure shattered, her face flushed with anger. You cannot possibly claim her as your mate. She is wolfless. She is nothing. I was supposed to be your mate. My father and I have been preparing for this for years." Damon finally released Thea's hand and turned to face Cassandra, his expression hardening back into the cold authority he had worn when he first entered. "You were never promised anything, Miss Cassandra," he said, his voice leaving no room for argument. "The unification ceremony is about bringing the packs together under one rule, not about arranging marriages for political convenience. If you and your father believed otherwise, that was your mistake, not mine." "But she has no wolf," Cassandra shrieked, and there was genuine desperation in her voice now. "How can she possibly be the mate of an Alpha King? She cannot even shift. She cannot give." "You strong heirs. She is weak and useless and broken." Each word was designed to wound, and they did. Thea felt them sinking into her flesh like arrows, confirming everything she had always believed about herself. Of course Cassandra was right. Of course this was all some terrible mistake. Of course the Alpha King would realize his error and withdraw his claim, and then Thea's life would be even worse than before because she would have to live with the memory of this moment, this brief, impossible moment when someone had seen value in her. But Damon's expression grew dangerous, his eyes flashing with something that made even Cassandra take a step back. "You will not speak of my mate that way," he said, his voice dropping to a growl that promised violence if she continued. "Ever. Do you understand?" Cassandra stared at him, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water, before she finally nodded jerkily. Damon turned to Alpha Marcus. "I will be conducting my own investigation into Thea's condition. I do not believe for a moment that she is truly wolfless. I believe that her wolf has been suppressed, either intentionally or through neglect and abuse." The accusation hung heavy in the air, and Alpha Marcus's face went through several shades of red before settling on a mottled purple. "Alpha King, I assure you, no one in this pack has ever intentionally harmed Thea. We have provided for her, given her work, allowed her to remain here despite her limitations." "Allowed her to remain," Damon repeated flatly. "How generous. And in exchange, you have made her your servant, your scapegoat, the target of your daughter's cruelty. Do not think I did not see that little performance when I entered this hall." Thea felt her face burning. She had never wanted this, never wanted to be the cause of conflict, never wanted attention at all. This was a nightmare, and it was only getting worse. "Please," she said, her voice small but desperate. "Please. I do not want to cause trouble. I can just go. I can leave and everything can go back to normal." Damon turned to her, his expression softening instantly. "You are not causing trouble, Thea. You are simply existing, and if your existence causes others discomfort, that says everything about them and nothing about you." The words were kind, but they felt impossible to believe. How could she be valuable? How could she be important? She was just Thea, just the quiet girl everyone laughed at. "I need air," she said suddenly, panic rising in her chest. "I need to go outside. I cannot breathe." She did not wait for permission. She turned and ran, pushing through the crowd that parted before her, with expressions ranging from pity to contempt to fascination. She ran through the halls of the pack house, past the kitchens where she had spent countless hours, past the servants' quarters where she slept on a narrow cot in a room she shared with 3 others, past all the familiar spaces that had been her prison for as long as she could remember. She burst out into the gardens behind the pack house, into the cool evening air, and collapsed onto a bench beneath an old oak tree. Her entire body was shaking. Tears streamed down her face, and she could not stop them, could not control the sobs that racked her frame. It was too much. All of it was too much. She heard footsteps approaching and knew without looking who it was. She could feel him now, that pull, that connection that had awakened the moment their eyes met. Damon sat beside her on the bench, close but not touching, giving her space even though something in her wanted him closer. "I am sorry," he said quietly. "I did not mean to overwhelm you, but I could not let that moment pass without acknowledging what you are to me." "What I am to you," Thea repeated, her voice thick with tears. You do not even know me. How can you possibly claim that I am your mate? The mate bond is not about knowing someone in a conventional sense, Damon explained, his voice patient, gentle in a way that seemed at odds with the commanding presence he had displayed in the hall. It is about recognition on the deepest level. My wolf knows your wolf, even if yours has not yet awakened. We are meant to be together, Thea. I knew it the moment I saw you. But why? She asked, finally turning to look at him through her tears. Why would the moon goddess mate you, an alpha king, with someone like me? It makes no sense. There must be some mistake. Damon reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted, and gently wiped the tears from her cheeks with his thumb. The touch was electric, sending shivers down her spine. There is no mistake, he said firmly, and you need to stop thinking of yourself as less than you are. The moon goddess does not make errors in mating. If she has bound us together, it is because you are exactly who I need, and I am exactly who you need. I do not even have a wolf, Thea said, her voice breaking again. Everyone is right. I am wolfless. I have been tested. There is nothing inside me. I do not believe that, Damon said. I have lived for over 200 years, Thea. I have seen things that would make your pack's history look like children's tales. I have met wolves whose abilities were suppressed by trauma, by dark magic, by the weight of others' expectations. You have been told you are nothing for so long that you have started to believe it, and that belief itself can be a cage stronger than any physical prison. The idea was seductive, dangerous, tempting. What if he was right? What if there was something inside her after all? Something that had been locked away so deeply she had forgotten it existed. But even if that were true, even if she did have a wolf buried somewhere in her soul, how would that change anything? Even if you are right, she said slowly. Even if there is a wolf inside me somewhere, that does not make me suitable to be the mate of an alpha king. I do not know how to navigate pack politics. I do not know how to stand beside someone powerful. I will embarrass you. I will let you down. Damon smiled, and there was something sad in it. Something that made Thea think he understood her fear better than she realized. You think I care about politics? You think I want someone who knows how to manipulate and scheme and play power games? Thea, I have been surrounded by that my entire life. What I need, what I have been searching for, is someone real, someone honest, someone who sees the world clearly because they have been at the bottom of it. That is a pretty speech, Thea said, a little bit of bitterness creeping into her voice despite her best efforts. But reality is different. You saw what happened in there. Your claim on me has already caused chaos. Cassandra will hate me even more now. Alpha Marcus will see me as a threat to his plans. The entire pack will talk about nothing else for weeks. How can I live like that? You do not have to, Damon said simply. Come with me. Leave this place. You were never meant to spend your life being diminished by wolves who could not see your value. Come to my territory, to the capital. Let me help you discover who you truly are. The offer hung between them, tempting and terrifying in equal measure. Leave the Riverside Pack? Leave the only home she had ever known? It was true that she had never been happy here, that she had never been valued or respected, or even noticed most of the time. But it was familiar. It was safe in its own horrible way. She knew what to expect here. With Damon, with the Alpha King, she would be entering a world completely foreign to her, a world where she would be expected to be someone she did not know how to be. I am scared, she admitted in a whisper. I know, Damon said, and he took her hand again, threading his fingers through hers. But I promise you, Thea, I will never let anyone hurt you again. Not physically, not emotionally, not in any way. You are under my protection now, and I do not take that responsibility lightly. She looked down at their joined hands, his so much larger than hers, strong and scarred from battles she could only imagine. She felt the warmth of his skin against hers, felt that pull, that connection, growing stronger with every moment they spent together. What do you think will happen next? Leave your predictions in the comments below. Okay, she heard herself say, and the word felt like stepping off a cliff into darkness, hoping there would be something to catch her. Okay, I will come with you. Damon's face lit up with genuine joy, and Thea realized with a start that he had been worried she would refuse. The Alpha King had been worried about her decision, as if her choice mattered, as if she had power in the situation. It was a dizzying realization. We will leave tomorrow morning, Damon said. That will give me time to conclude my business here and you time to gather whatever belongings you wish to bring. I do not have much, Thea admitted. Just some clothes and a few books. Then we will get you everything you need when we reach the capital, Damon said, as if buying an entire wardrobe was nothing. But Thea, I want you to know that you do not have to become someone else to be with me. I do not need you to transform into some ideal of what an Alpha King's mate should be. I just need you to be yourself. The words were kind, but Thea could not quite believe them. How could being herself ever be enough? She had spent her entire life being told, in words and actions, that she was insufficient in every measurable way. But she did not argue. She simply nodded and allowed herself to lean slightly against Damon's shoulder, feeling the solid strength of him, feeling safer than she had ever felt before, even as terror still coursed through her veins. They sat like that for a long time, in silence, under the oak tree, while inside the pack, house she knew chaos was probably still reigning. Eventually they would have to go back in. Eventually she would have to face Cassandra's hatred, and Alpha Marcus's calculations, and the shock and speculation of everyone who had witnessed what happened in that hall. But for now, for this moment, she allowed herself to simply be, to sit beside the man who claimed she was his mate, to feel the strange pull between them, to wonder if perhaps, maybe, impossibly, her life was about to become something more than survival. When they finally rose and walked back toward the pack house, Damon kept her hand firmly in his, a public declaration that he meant every word he had said. Thea felt every eye on them as they entered, heard the whispers start up again like a swarm of locusts. But with Damon beside her, the weight of those stares felt slightly less crushing. Alpha Marcus approached them with a carefully neutral expression. Alpha King, perhaps we should retire to my study to discuss the details of the unification ceremony and your unexpected claiming. There is nothing unexpected about it, Damon replied coolly. And yes, we should speak privately. But Thea comes with me. Alpha Marcus's jaw tightened. Is that truly necessary? Surely she would be more comfortable waiting elsewhere while we conduct pack business. She is my mate, Damon said, his voice hard. Therefore, anything that concerns me concerns her. She comes with me, or we do not speak at all. The display of power, of protection, made something inside Thea's chest glow warm. No one had ever stood up for her before. No one had ever insisted on her presence, her importance, her value. Alpha Marcus clearly wanted to argue but knew better than to push the Alpha King further. Of course, he said through gritted teeth. This way. They followed Alpha Marcus through the pack house to his private study, a large room lined with books and dominated by a massive desk of dark wood. Cassandra was already there. Her eyes red and swollen from crying, her earlier composure completely shattered. When she saw Thea enter with her father and the Alpha King, her expression twisted into something ugly. Why is she here? Cassandra demanded. This is pack business. She is just a servant. She is my mate, Damon repeated, his patience clearly wearing thin. And I will not tell you again, Miss Cassandra. You will speak of her with respect, or you will not speak at all. Cassandra's mouth snapped shut, but the hatred in her eyes was unmistakable. Thea felt it like a physical force, and instinctively moved closer to Damon, seeking the shelter of his presence. Alpha Marcus gestured for them to sit, taking his own place behind the desk in a clear power play. Damon, of course, was unimpressed. He remained standing, keeping Thea at his side. Let us be clear about the situation, Damon began, his voice all business now. The unification ceremony will proceed as planned 3 days from now. All the major packs will gather to acknowledge my authority and swear their loyalty. This was always the purpose, and it has not changed. But surely the question of your mate complicates things, Alpha Marcus said carefully. Many alphas were hoping to arrange matches with you for their daughters. If you have already claimed someone, especially someone of Thea's status, there will be disappointment, perhaps even resistance. Then they will be disappointed and resistant, Damon said flatly. I did not ask for their approval, and I do not need it. The mate bond is sacred, Alpha Marcus. Surely you remember that from your own training. To reject one's true mate is to invite the wrath of the moon goddess herself. Yes, but typically true mates are of similar status, Alpha Marcus argued, his voice growing sharper. An alpha with an alpha female, a beta with a beta female, and so on. The balance is important. What you are suggesting, claiming an omega, a wolfless omega at that, as your mate goes. Against tradition. Tradition is not law, Damon countered. And I have no interest in perpetuating systems that value breeding over connection. My decision is final. Cassandra made a sound of frustration. But what about everything we discussed? What about the alliance between our packs? What about the trade agreements and the territorial arrangements? Those were all contingent on a marriage between us. Were they? Damon asked, raising an eyebrow. Because I do not recall ever agreeing to marry you, Miss Cassandra. I recall your father presenting various proposals, but I made no commitments. If you interpreted my willingness to attend this ceremony as acceptance of a betrothal that was never offered, that is unfortunate, but not my responsibility. Thea watched the exchange with growing anxiety. She could see the calculation in Alpha Marcus's eyes, the desperation in Cassandra's, the absolute certainty in Damon's. This was pack politics at its most brutal, and she was somehow at the center of it, despite having no understanding of how these games were played. Thea, Alpha Marcus said suddenly, turning his attention to her for the first time since they had entered the study. You must see that this situation is impossible. You are not suited to be an Alpha King's mate. You have no training, no pedigree, no wolf. Surely you care enough about Alpha King Damon to step aside and allow him to make a match that would benefit him and all the packs. The words were poison. Disguised as reason, designed to make her doubt, to make her leave, to remove the obstacle she represented. And the terrible thing was, part of her agreed with him. Part of her believed that she was insufficient, that she would only bring Damon down, that the right thing to do would be to walk away. But then she felt Damon's hand tighten on hers, felt the warmth of their connection, remembered the way he had knelt before her, the way he had looked at her as if she was something precious. And she found herself speaking, even though her voice shook. That is not your decision to make, Alpha Marcus. It is not even my decision alone. Damon has claimed me as his mate. If he wishes to withdraw that claim, he can. But I will not make that choice for him. The words came out stronger than she felt. But once they were spoken, Thea felt something shift inside her. A tiny flicker of something that might have been courage, might have been defiance, might have been the first stirring of a wolf that had been sleeping for far too long. Damon looked at her with such pride that it made her breath catch. Well said, he murmured, then turned back to Alpha Marcus. You heard her. This discussion is over. Thea is my mate, and she will stand beside me at the unification ceremony as such. Any pack that has a problem with that can take it up with me directly, and I think we all know how that conversation will end. Alpha Marcus's face was tight with suppressed rage, but he nodded curtly. As you say, Alpha King, I will make the necessary announcements and arrangements. See that you do, Damon said. And Alpha Marcus, I expect Thea to be moved to guest quarters immediately. She will not spend another night in the servants' area, and anyone who treats her with anything less than the respect due to my mate will answer to me personally. Is that understood? Perfectly, Alpha Marcus said, though the word sounded like it cost him dearly. Damon guided Thea out of the study, his hand still, firmly holding hers. As they walked through the corridors, pack members scrambled to get out of their way, eyes wide with shock and speculation. Thea could hear the whispers following them, could feel the weight of hundreds of judgments and opinions pressing down on her. But with Damon beside her, she managed to keep walking, head up, even as her heart raced with anxiety. They were shown to a suite of rooms in the guest wing, rooms that were larger and more luxurious than any space Thea had ever occupied. There was a bedroom with a massive 4-poster bed, a sitting area with comfortable furniture, a bathroom with a tub large enough to swim in. It was overwhelming. "I will have your things brought here," Damon said, though they both knew she had almost nothing to bring. "And I will be in the suite next door. If you need anything at all, you just have to knock or call out. I will hear you." "You can hear through walls?" Thea asked, then felt foolish. Of course he could. He was a wolf, a powerful one. She was the only one who could not do such basic things. But Damon did not make her feel foolish. "Yes," he said simply. "And before you ask, no, I will not be listening to your private moments. I can control what I pay attention to. But if you are in danger or distress, I will know immediately." "Thank you," Thea said, though the words felt inadequate for everything he had done for her today. For all of this. For standing up for me. For not letting them make me leave. "You never have to thank me for treating you the way you deserve to be treated," Damon said firmly. "But you are welcome nonetheless." He moved toward the door, then paused. "Thea, I know today has been overwhelming. I know you are probably terrified and confused and wondering what you have gotten yourself into. But I want you to know something." She looked up at him, waiting. "You are stronger than you think you are," he said quietly. "Stronger than they have let you believe. In the days, too. Come, you are going to start discovering that strength, and when you do, the whole world is going to have to reckon with who you really are." With that, he left, closing the door softly behind him. Thea stood alone in the center of the luxurious suite, and finally allowed herself to process everything that had happened. She had been claimed by the Alpha King. She was leaving the Riverside Pack. Her entire life had been turned upside down in the span of a few hours. She walked to the window and looked out over the Packlands, over the territory that had been her prison for 23 years. Somewhere out there, beyond the borders, was a new life, a new world, a new version of herself that she could not even imagine yet. And she was terrified. But beneath the terror, buried deep but beginning to stir, was something else. Something that felt almost like hope. Thea stripped off her stained servant's clothes and drew herself a bath, sinking into the hot water with a sigh. She could not remember the last time she had been allowed to use hot water, let alone have an entire tub to herself. It was a small thing, but it felt like luxury, like proof that perhaps things really were changing. As she soaked, she found her mind drifting back to Damon, to the way he had looked at her, the way he had defended her, the way his touch had sent electricity through her entire body. The mate bond. It was supposed to be sacred, unbreakable, a gift from the moon goddess. But how could it be real? How could someone like him be meant for someone like her? She thought about what he had said, about her wolf being suppressed rather than absent. Was it possible? Could there really be something inside her that had been locked away all this time? And if so, how would she ever access it? Thea climbed out of the bath eventually, dried herself with towels softer than anything she had ever touched, and put on the simple nightgown that had been left for her. It was not hers, probably something borrowed from a pack member, but it fit well enough. She climbed into the enormous bed, expecting to lie awake all night, mind racing with worry and fear and anticipation. But exhaustion claimed her quickly, pulling her down into sleep faster than she would have thought possible after such a day. And in her dreams, She ran. She ran through forests under a full moon, powerful and free, her body sleek and strong, her senses sharp and clear. She ran with a massive black wolf beside her. There, movements perfectly synchronized, and she felt complete in a way she had never felt while awake. She felt whole. When she woke the next morning to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows, the dream lingered. She could still feel the phantom sensation of paws hitting the ground, of muscles bunching and releasing, of the wind in her fur. For the first time in her life, Thea allowed herself to wonder if perhaps, maybe, impossibly, Damon might be right. Perhaps there was a wolf inside her. After all, perhaps she was not broken. Perhaps she had simply been sleeping, waiting for the right moment to wake up. There was a knock at her door, and Thea called out permission to enter. A young woman came in carrying a tray with breakfast and a bundle of clothing. She looked nervous, her eyes darting around as if she expected to be reprimanded. "Good morning, Miss Thea," the girl said, setting the tray down on a small table. "Alpha King Damon asked me to bring you food and something suitable to wear for traveling. We will be departing in a few hours." "Thank you," Thea said, and the girl's eyes widened slightly, as if she had not expected kindness. It made Thea wonder how she herself had been perceived by other servants, whether her own misery had made her overlook the struggles of those around her. The girl bobbed a quick curtsy and hurried out, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. Thea examined the clothing and found well-made traveling garments, sturdy but comfortable in shades of deep blue and gray. They fit her surprisingly well, and when she looked at herself in the mirror, she barely recognized the woman staring back. She looked almost presentable, almost like someone who could stand beside an Alpha King without causing immediate embarrassment. Almost. The breakfast was simple but delicious, and Thea ate slowly, savoring every bite. She knew that once she left this room, once she faced the pack again, the difficulty would begin. But for now, in this moment of calm, she allowed herself to simply exist without fear. If you want to see how this story ends, make sure you are subscribed with notifications on. When she finally emerged from her room, she found Damon waiting in the hallway, looking refreshed and imposing in traveling clothes of black leather. His eyes lit up when he saw her, and he smiled. "You look beautiful," he said simply, and Thea felt heat rising in her cheeks. "I look presentable," she corrected. "There is a difference." "Is there?" Damon asked, moving closer. "Because I see a woman who is starting to believe she might be worth something, and that is the most beautiful thing in the world." Before Thea could formulate a response to that, they were interrupted by the arrival of Damon's beta, a man named Marcus, who had been introduced briefly the night before, but whom Thea had barely registered in all the chaos. "Everything is prepared for departure, Alpha King," Marcus reported. "The vehicles are loaded and the escort is ready. Alpha Marcus requests a moment of your time before we leave." "Of course he does," Damon said dryly. "Very well. Thea, stay with Marcus. I will return shortly." He left before she could protest, and Thea found herself alone with the beta, who was studying her with an expression she could not quite read. "You caused quite a stir last night," Marcus finally said, his tone neutral. "I imagine that is not what you wanted." "No," Thea admitted. "It was not. I never wanted to cause problems. For anyone. And yet, here we are," Marcus said, but there was no judgment in his voice, only observation. "The Alpha King claimed you in front of an entire pack. That is not something that can be taken back or ignored. You understand what that means?" "I am trying to," Thea said honestly, "but I do not think I fully grasp all the implications yet." Marcus nodded slowly. "Fair enough. But let me be clear about something. Damon is not just my alpha. He is my friend, has been for over a century. I have seen him face down rogue packs, negotiate treaties between enemies, survive assassination attempts and coups. He is the strongest wolf I have ever known, but he is not invincible. And you, whether you intend to or not, have become his greatest vulnerability. The words were sobering, frightening even. I do not want to be that, Thea said quietly. I do not want to be the weakness that brings him down. Then you need to become strong, Marcus replied. Not for him, but for yourself. Because every enemy he has, and there are many, will now see you as a target. They will try to use you against him. They will try to hurt him. And if you remain as you are now, uncertain and afraid and convinced of your own worthlessness, you will not survive what is coming. The brutal honesty was actually refreshing after so many years of being simply ignored or dismissed. Marcus was not coddling her or pretending the situation was anything other than dangerous. How do I become strong? Thea asked. I do not even know where to start. You start by believing you are worth protecting, Marcus said. You start by letting go of everything this pack has told you about your value. You start by accepting that the mate bond is real, that Damon truly sees something in you, even if you do not see it in yourself yet. And then you work, you train, you learn. You become the woman who can stand beside an alpha king and not be overshadowed. What if I cannot? Thea whispered, voicing her deepest fear. What if I try and fail? What if I am really just the worthless Omega everyone has always said I was? Marcus's expression softened slightly. Then Damon would not have claimed you. The mate bond is not random, Thea. The moon goddess does not make mistakes. If you are meant to be his mate, it is because you have something inside you that he needs, that the kingdom needs. Your job is simply to discover what that is. Before Thea could respond, Damon returned, his expression dark. What did Alpha Marcus want? Marcus asked immediately, his tone shifting to professional concern. To make one last attempt at changing my mind, Damon said. To offer Thea money to disappear quietly. To suggest that perhaps the mate bond was simply a momentary confusion brought on by stress. It was all very insulting and very predictable. And Cassandra? Thea found herself asking, not sure why she cared, but feeling compelled to know. Did she try anything? She was waiting. Outside the study, Damon admitted. She attempted to seduce me, actually. Made quite an explicit offer involving her willingness to accept a position as mistress if she could not be mate. Thea felt something sharp and hot twist in her chest. Something that might have been jealousy, might have been anger, might have been the first stirring of possessiveness. And what did you say? She asked, her voice carefully neutral. Damon looked at her, his amber eyes intense. I told her that I have never been interested in her, that I will never be interested in her, and that if she approaches me again with such proposals, I will have her banned from court permanently. I also told her that if she makes any attempt to harm you, in any way, I will consider it an act of war against my kingdom. The fierce protectiveness in his voice made Thea's knees weak. She had never been defended before, never been valued enough to inspire such vehemence. It was overwhelming and wonderful and terrifying all at once. We should go, Marcus said quietly, before Alpha Marcus thinks of more ways to delay us. They made their way out of the pack house, and Thea was acutely aware of every eye tracking their progress. The pack had gathered to see them off, or more accurately, to see her leave with the Alpha King, to witness this impossible thing with their own eyes. Cassandra stood with her father, her face a mask of barely controlled rage. Other pack members whispered and pointed. Some looked sympathetic, others contemptuous, but all were fascinated. Damon helped Thea into the first vehicle, a sleek black SUV, and climbed in beside her. Marcus took the front seat, and several other vehicles filled with warriors fell into formation around them. As they pulled away from the Riverside pack, Thea looked back one last time at the only home she had ever known. She felt no sadness at leaving, only relief, and perhaps that said everything that needed to be said about her life here. No regrets? Damon asked softly, his hand finding hers in the space between them. None, Thea said, and realized she meant it. Whatever comes next, it has to be better than what I am leaving behind. It will be, Damon promised. I swear to you, Thea, your life starts now. Your real life. And it will be extraordinary. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe that she could be extraordinary. That she could be the mate an Alpha King deserved. That she could find the wolf that Damon insisted was sleeping. Inside her. But belief was hard after so many years of being told she was nothing. The journey to the capital took several hours, winding through pack territories and neutral lands, through forests and over rivers, through a world that Thea had never seen beyond the borders of Riverside. She watched it all with wide eyes, taking in the beauty and the vastness, realizing how small her world had been, how limited her understanding. Damon talked occasionally, pointing out landmarks, telling her about the different packs they passed, but mostly he let her process in silence, seeming to understand that she needed time to adjust. When they finally approached the capital, Thea's breath caught in her throat. The city was enormous, sprawling across the landscape with buildings that rose higher than she had imagined possible. In the center, dominating everything, was the palace. It was a massive structure of white stone and glass, beautiful and imposing, a physical manifestation of the power Damon wielded. "That is home," Damon said, watching her reaction. "Or it will be, once you become comfortable there." "I do not think I will ever be comfortable in a place like that," Thea admitted. "It is too big, too grand. I am just going to get lost and embarrass myself constantly." "Then I will find you every time," Damon said simply. "And you will not embarrass yourself, Thea. You will simply be yourself, and that will be enough." She wished she could believe him. The palace was even more overwhelming up close. Servants in crisp uniforms rushed to attend them as they exited the vehicles. Warriors stood at attention, their eyes curious as they studied the woman who had apparently captured their Alpha King's heart. Thea felt herself shrinking, trying to become invisible again, but Damon's hand at her back kept her upright, kept her moving forward. "Relax," he murmured in her ear. "They are not judging you. They are simply curious. Most of them are probably relieved that I have finally found my mate. There has been a great deal of pressure on me to choose someone. But they were expecting someone like Cassandra," Thea said. "Someone beautiful and confident and powerful. Not someone like me. They were expecting someone I chose for political reasons," Damon corrected. "What they are getting is someone I chose because the moon goddess herself decreed it. There is a difference, and they know it." He led her through the palace, through corridors lined with artwork and windows that let in floods of light, through rooms so large Thea thought entire families could live in them comfortably. Finally, they reached a suite of rooms even more luxurious than the guest quarters at Riverside. "These are yours," Damon said, gesturing to the space. "Your private quarters. No one enters without your permission, including me." Thea looked around at the beautiful furniture, the plush rugs, the enormous bed, the sitting area with a fireplace, the bathroom that looked like something from a dream. It was too much. It was all too much. "I do not deserve this," she whispered. Damon turned her to face him, his hands gentle on her shoulders. "That is the old Thea talking, the one who was beaten down and told she was worthless. That Thea does not exist anymore. Do you understand me? You are the mate of the Alpha King. These rooms are yours by right, not by charity, and the sooner you accept that, the easier this transition will be." "I am trying," Thea said, tears threatening again. "I am trying so hard to believe you, to believe that I can be what you need me to be. But I am scared. I am so scared that I am going to wake up and discover this was all a dream. Or worse, that it is real. But I will fail so spectacularly that you will regret ever claiming me." Damon pulled her into his arms, and Thea melted against his chest, feeling the solid strength of him, hearing the steady beat of his heart. He smelled like pine and smoke and something uniquely him, and it was the most comforting thing she had ever experienced. "I could never regret you," he said fiercely. "Never. And you are not going to fail, Thea. You are going to grow and learn and discover parts of yourself you never knew existed. It will not be easy, but I will be with you every step of the way." She pulled back enough to look up at him, to see the truth in his eyes. And there, in his gaze, she saw something that made her breath catch. Not just determination or protectiveness, but something deeper. Something that looked almost like the beginning of love. "Why me?" she asked one more time, needing to hear it, needing to understand. "Why did the moon goddess choose me for you?" Damon smiled, lifting one hand to cup her cheek. "Because you are exactly what I need. Because in a world full of people trying to be what they think they should be, you are simply yourself. Because you have survived things that would have broken others, and somehow remained kind. Because when I look at you, I see strength you have not discovered yet, potential waiting to be unleashed, a future so bright it almost blinds me. I do not see any of that when I look at myself," Thea admitted. "Then you are going to have to trust my vision until your own clears," Damon said. "Can you do that? Can you trust me, even when you do not trust yourself?" Thea thought about it, really thought about it. Could she trust him? This man she barely knew, who had turned her entire world upside down in a single day. But then she remembered the way he had knelt before her, the way he had defended her, the way he looked at her as if she was precious. And she realized that maybe, just maybe, she could. "Yes," she said softly. "I can trust you." "Good," Damon said. And then, giving her time to pull away if she wanted, he leaned down and pressed his lips to hers. The kiss was gentle, questioning, nothing like the demanding passion Thea had imagined an alpha king might show. It was sweet and careful and asked permission, even as it gave pleasure. And when Thea kissed him back, tentatively at first, but with growing confidence, she felt something inside her shift, crack, begin to wake up. A warmth spread through her body, starting at her core and radiating outward, and for just a moment, just a heartbeat, she could have sworn she felt something stir inside her mind. Something that had been asleep for a very long time. Something that recognized its mate and was beginning, finally, to wake. When they broke apart, both breathing harder, Damon was staring at her with wonder. "You felt that," he said. It was not a question. "I felt something," Thea admitted. "I do not know what it was, but it was like something woke up inside me, just for a second." "Your wolf," Damon said, certainty in his voice. "She is in there, Thea. I told you. She has just been sleeping, waiting for the right moment." "How do I wake her completely?" Thea asked, feeling desperate now, feeling that if she could just access that part of herself, everything else would make sense. "Patience," Damon said, "and training, and time. But we will get there. I promise you, we will get there." He left her then, reluctantly, but giving her space to settle in, to process, to breathe. Thea explored her new quarters, touching the soft fabrics, looking out windows that offered views of the city and the forests beyond, trying to reconcile this new reality with everything she had known before. There was a knock at her door, and when she opened it, she found a woman standing there, middle-aged with kind eyes and a warm smile. "Hello, Miss Thea. My name is Margaret. Alpha King Damon asked me to help you get settled and to assist you with anything you might need. I have been in service to the royal family for 30 years, so if you have questions about how things work here, I am happy to answer them." "Thank you," Thea said, stepping aside to let Margaret enter. "I have to admit, I am completely overwhelmed. I do not know anything about palace life or what is expected of me. No one expects you to know everything immediately," Margaret said kindly. "You will learn as you go. For now, why do not we start with something simple? I have arranged for a seamstress to come take your measurements for proper clothing. An Alpha King's mate needs an appropriate wardrobe, after all." The idea of being measured, of having clothes made specifically for her, was foreign and intimidating. But Thea nodded, determined to face each challenge as it came. Over the next few hours, she was measured and pinned and draped with fabrics and colors she had never imagined wearing. The seamstress, a cheerful woman named Rosa, chattered constantly about styles and cuts, and what would flatter Thea's figure, treating her like someone whose appearance mattered, whose preferences were important. It was disorienting and wonderful. When the seamstress finally left, promising to have the first set of garments ready within 2 days, Thea collapsed onto the sofa in her sitting area, exhausted. Margaret brought her tea and sandwiches, sitting with her companionably. "You are handling this remarkably well," Margaret observed. "Most people would be having a complete breakdown by now." "Who says I am not?" Thea asked with a weak laugh. "I am barely holding it together, to be honest." "But you are holding it together," Margaret said. "That takes strength. More strength than you probably realize. Everyone keeps telling me I am strong," Thea said. "But I do not feel strong. I feel terrified and out of my depth and like I am one wrong move away from proving everyone right about my worthlessness." Margaret set down her tea and looked at Thea seriously. "May I speak plainly?" "Please," Thea said, desperate for honesty in a world that suddenly felt full of politeness and political maneuvering. "You have been abused," Margaret said bluntly. "Perhaps not physically, though I would not be surprised if there were incidents you have not mentioned. But emotionally, psychologically, you have been systematically broken down by people who should have protected you. That kind of damage does not heal overnight. It does not heal just because someone tells you that you are valuable now. It takes time and effort and a lot of hard work to rebuild yourself." The words hit Thea hard because they were true. She had been abused, not in ways that left visible scars, but in ways that had convinced her she was less than nothing, that had made her believe she deserved every cruel word and dismissive glance. "How do I fix it?" Thea asked, her voice small. "How do I become the person Damon thinks I am?" "You start by acknowledging that the person he thinks you are is actually the person you have always been underneath all the lies they told you," Margaret said gently. "You start by being kind to yourself. You start by giving yourself permission to take up space, to have needs, to matter. And you let the people around you help. You. Alpha King Damon sees something in you because it is there to be seen. Your job is simply to clear away enough of the damage to see it yourself." Thea felt tears sliding down her cheeks again. She seemed to be crying constantly these days, as if years of suppressed emotion were finally being released. Margaret handed her a handkerchief without comment, allowing her to cry without judgment. "Thank you," Thea finally managed, "for being honest with me, for not pretending this is going to be easy." "It will not be easy," Margaret agreed, "but it will be worth it. And you are not alone, Miss Thea. You have Alpha King Damon, and you have me, and you will have others who will come to care for you once they know you. You are not facing this alone anymore." That night, Thea ate dinner alone in her quarters, still too overwhelmed to face the formal dining situation she knew existed somewhere in the palace. Margaret had assured her it was fine, that she was allowed to take her time. Adjusting, that no one expected her to immediately step into the role of Alpha King's mate, as if she had been training for it her entire life. But as she sat in the silence, picking at food that was more delicious than anything she had ever tasted, Thea felt loneliness creeping in. This was what she had wanted, was it not? To be left alone, to not be the target of cruelty and mockery. But somehow, this isolation felt different from the invisibility she had known at Riverside. This felt like being in a cage made of gold, beautiful, but still confining. There was a knock at her door, and when she opened it, she found Damon standing there, looking uncertain in a way she had never seen him look before. "I wanted to check on you," he said, "to make sure you were settling in. But if you need space, I can leave." "No," Thea said quickly, stepping aside. "Please come in. I was actually feeling quite lonely." Relief flooded his features as he entered, and Thea realized that he had been worried she might reject him, that she might need distance after everything that had happened. It was oddly comforting to know that even the Alpha King could feel uncertain. How was your day? Damon asked, sitting in one of the armchairs and gesturing for Thea to take the sofa. She told him about the seamstress and Margaret, and the overwhelming luxury of everything. He listened attentively, asking questions, making her feel heard in a way she had never experienced before. I want to start your training tomorrow, Damon said eventually. Training? Thea asked, confused. Training for what? For awakening your wolf, Damon explained. I have been thinking about it all day, consulting with pack historians and shamans. There are techniques, rituals, meditations that can help draw out a suppressed wolf. It will not be easy, and it might take time, but I believe we can do it. Hope and fear warred in Thea's chest. What if we cannot? What if there really is no wolf inside me, and we waste all this time trying to find something that does not exist? Then we will face that together, Damon said firmly. But I do not believe that will happen. I felt your wolf, Thea. When we kissed earlier, when that warmth spread through you, that was her. She is in there. She is just scared and confused and needs help coming forward. Like me, Thea said quietly. Scared and confused and needing help. Damon moved to sit beside her on the sofa, taking her hand. Exactly like you. You and your wolf are mirrors of each other. As you heal, she will emerge. As she emerges, you will heal. It is a cycle, a journey you will take together. When do we start? Thea asked, deciding that if she was going to do this, she might as well commit fully. Tomorrow morning, Damon said. Early, before the palace fully wakes. We will go to the sacred grove in the forest. It is a place of power, a place where the moon goddess's presence is strong. If anywhere can help wake your wolf, it will be there. They talked for hours that night, about everything and nothing. Damon told her about his childhood, about the responsibilities of being Alpha King, about the loneliness of power and the weight of decisions that affected thousands of lives. Thea found herself opening up in return, telling him things she had never told anyone, about the small kindnesses that had kept her going during dark times, about the books she loved to read, about the dreams she had never dared voice aloud. When Damon finally left, promising to collect her at dawn, Thea felt more connected to him than seemed possible after knowing someone for such a short time. The mate bond was real. She could feel it strengthening with every conversation, every touch, every shared moment. She slept better that night, and when she dreamed, she ran through forests again, the black wolf beside her, getting closer with every stride. When dawn broke, Thea rose and dressed in the simple clothing Margaret had left for her, suitable for walking in the forest. Her heart raced with anticipation and fear. Today, she would begin the journey to find her wolf. Today, she would start becoming whoever she was meant to be. Damon was waiting for her when she emerged from her quarters, and together they walked through the silent palace and out into the forest beyond. The sacred grove was about an hour's walk, and they made the journey in comfortable silence, the world still gray with pre-dawn light. When they reached the grove, Thea understood immediately why it was considered sacred. The trees here were ancient, their trunks thick and gnarled with age, their branches forming a canopy that filtered the growing light into something ethereal and magical. In the center of the grove was a small clearing with a natural spring, the water so clear it looked like liquid crystal. This place has been holy to our kind for thousands of years, Damon said quietly, his voice reverent. Alphas have been crowned here. Mates have been bonded here. Wolves who thought they were broken have found healing here. The moon goddess's presence is strong in this place. Can you feel it? Thea closed her eyes and tried to sense what Damon was describing. At first, there was nothing but the normal sounds of the forest waking up, birds beginning to sing, wind rustling through leaves. But then, slowly, she began to feel something else. A warmth, a presence, a sense of being watched over by something ancient and benevolent. I feel something, she whispered, afraid that speaking too loudly would break the spell. Good, Damon said. That is a start. Now I want you to kneel beside the spring and look into the water. Not at your reflection, but through it. Try to see past the surface into the depths. Thea did as he instructed, kneeling on the soft moss beside the spring and gazing into the water. At first, she saw only her own face looking back, tired and anxious. But as she continued to stare, as she let her vision blur, slightly, she began to see something else. Movement in the depths, shadows that did not match the world above. And then, for just a moment, she saw eyes, wolf eyes, looking back at her from inside the water, from inside herself. Thea gasped and jerked back, her heart hammering. I saw her, she breathed. I saw my wolf. She is really in there. Damon knelt beside her, his expression triumphant. I told you. She has been waiting for you, Thea. Waiting for the moment when you would be strong. Enough to accept her. When you would be safe enough to let her out. How do I reach her? Thea asked desperately. How do I bring her forward? That is what we are going to work on, Damon said. It will take time and effort and patience. But we will get there. Together. And so began the most intense period of Thea's life. Every morning she and Damon returned to the sacred grove. He taught her to meditate, to sink into herself, to search for the place where her wolf was hiding. He taught her breathing exercises, visualization techniques, ways to calm her mind and body enough that her wolf might feel safe enough to emerge. It was frustrating work. Days passed with no progress beyond that first glimpse. Thea would kneel by the spring for hours, searching, calling, begging her wolf to show herself, only to come away exhausted and discouraged. But Damon never lost faith. He was patient and encouraging, celebrating small victories like the moments when Thea thought she could feel fur beneath her skin, or when her senses seemed sharper than usual. During the afternoons, Margaret tutored Thea in palace life, teaching her etiquette and protocol, introducing her to key members of the court, helping her navigate the complex social hierarchies that governed everything. The unification ceremony was only days away now, and Thea would be expected to stand beside Damon as his acknowledged mate. The pressure was enormous, but Thea found herself rising to meet it, drawing on reserves of strength she had not known she possessed. The other members of court were cautiously welcoming, curious about the woman who had captured their Alpha King's heart, but willing to give her a chance. Some were openly supportive, telling her stories of their own struggles and transformations. Others were more reserved, clearly waiting to see if she would prove herself worthy of her position. And a few were hostile, believing that Damon should have chosen someone of higher status, someone with power, and connections to bring to the union. Thea learned to navigate it all, to smile politely at insults disguised as compliments, to stand tall when others tried to make her feel small, to project confidence even when terror coursed through her veins. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who loves epic romance. Tell me in the comments, did you see this ending coming? On the morning of the 5th day of training, something changed. Thea was kneeling by the spring as usual, sinking into meditation, searching for her wolf, when suddenly she felt her. Not a glimpse or a shadow or a possibility, but an actual presence. Her wolf was there, in her mind, nervous and uncertain, but present. Hello, Thea thought, directing the word inward. I have been looking for you. I know, came a voice, not spoken aloud, but heard nonetheless, feminine and strong and achingly familiar. I have been here all along, waiting. But you were not ready before. Am I ready now? Thea asked. Feel scared and uncertain and convinced I will fail. That is why you are ready, her wolf replied. Because you are trying anyway. Because you have stopped waiting for permission to exist. Because you are starting to believe you might be worth something. Tears streamed down Thea's face as she conversed with the part of herself she had thought was lost forever. Why were you silent for so long? Why did you never answer when I called? Because you were not safe, the wolf said simply. If I had emerged while you were still at Riverside, while you still believed you were nothing, they would have destroyed us both. I stayed hidden to protect us. But now, with him, with our mate, we are finally safe enough to be whole. Thea opened her eyes and found Damon watching her intently. Something happened, he said. I can see it in your face. I spoke to her, Thea said, her voice shaking with emotion. My wolf. She answered me. She is really there, Damon. She has always been there. Damon pulled her into his arms, holding her as she cried tears of relief and joy and grief for all the years she had been denied this connection. I am so proud of you, he murmured into her hair. I knew you could do it. I knew you would find her. She says we can shift soon, Thea said. Not today, but soon. Once I grow more comfortable with the connection, once I trust it fully, then we will keep working, Damon said, as long as it takes. Over the next 2 days, Thea spent hours in meditation, strengthening the bond with her wolf, learning to communicate fluidly, discovering aspects of herself she had never imagined. Her senses began to sharpen. She could hear conversations happening rooms away, could smell emotions on people's skin, could see in darkness that would have blinded her before. Her wolf was not just present, but integrating, merging with Thea in a way that made her feel complete for the first time in her life. And through it all, the mate bond with Damon grew stronger. Every touch sent sparks through her system. Every kiss awakened parts of her that had been dormant. She found herself wanting him with an intensity that was both exhilarating and terrifying. And she could see the same desire reflected in his eyes, carefully controlled but always present. The night before the unification ceremony, Damon came to her quarters and found her standing by the window, staring out at the full moon. Nervous about tomorrow? He asked, coming to stand beside her. Terrified, Thea admitted. Everyone will be watching. All the alphas, all the pack leaders, everyone will be judging whether I am worthy to stand beside you. Let them judge, Damon said fiercely. Their opinions mean nothing compared to the truth. You are my mate. The moon goddess herself decreed it. That is the only validation you need. But what if I embarrass you? Thea asked, voicing her deepest fear. What if I say something wrong, or do something inappropriate and make you look foolish? For claiming me? Damon turned her to face him, his hands gentle on her shoulders. Thea, you need to understand something. I have lived for over 200 years. I have faced down challenges that would destroy most wolves. I have made decisions that cost lives, that changed the course of history for our kind. And through it all, I have been alone. Powerful, yes. Respected, certainly. But fundamentally alone because I had not found the one person who was meant to stand beside me. He cupped, her face in his hands, his amber eyes intense. You are that person. Not because you know the right things to say, or because you understand pack politics, or because you fit some ideal of what an alpha king's mate should be. You are that person, because the core of who you are matches the core of who I am. Because when I am with you, I feel complete in a way I never have before. Because you have survived things that would have broken others, and remained kind and hopeful and real. I am starting to believe you, Thea whispered. I am starting to believe that maybe I am not the worthless thing they told me I was. You were never worthless, Damon said firmly. You were simply hidden, like a diamond buried in mud. But now you are being cleaned off, and everyone is going to see what I saw from the beginning. A woman of incredible strength, and courage, and heart. He kissed her then, deep and passionate, and Thea kissed him back with all the emotion flooding through her. The mate bond sang between them, pulling them closer, and Thea felt her wolf rising to meet his, felt the two of them recognizing each other on a level beyond human comprehension. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Damon rested his forehead against hers. Tomorrow we stand together before the packs. We show them that our bond is real and unbreakable. We show them that you are exactly where you belong. Are you ready? Yes, Thea said, and realized she meant it. She was not ready to be perfect or to never, or make mistakes. But she was ready to stop hiding, to stop shrinking, to stop believing the lies. She was ready to step into her destiny, whatever that might be. Yes, I am ready. The unification ceremony began at noon, with the sun high overhead and hundreds of wolves gathered in the great courtyard of the palace. Thea stood beside Damon on a raised platform, wearing a gown that the seamstress had worked around the clock to complete. It was silver like moonlight, simple but elegant, designed to make her look like she belonged beside royalty. The ceremony itself was ancient and formal, with each Alpha coming forward to pledge their loyalty to Damon and to acknowledge his authority as Alpha King. Thea watched as powerful men and women knelt before the man she was mated to, understanding for perhaps the first time the true scope of his power and influence. And then came the moment she had been dreading. Damon took her hand and pulled her forward, presenting her to the assembled Pax. "This is Thea," his voice rang out clearly. "My true mate, chosen by the moon goddess herself. She stands with me not by political arrangement or strategic alliance, but by sacred bond. Any disrespect shown to her is disrespect shown to me. Any harm attempted against her will be considered an act of war. I present her to you now and ask for your acknowledgement." There was a moment of silence, and Thea felt her heart stop. What if they refused? What if they rejected her? What if this was the moment where everything fell apart? And then, starting from the front and spreading like a wave through the crowd, the assembled wolves dropped to one knee, heads bowed, acknowledging her place beside their king. Thea felt tears prickling her eyes, but fought them back. She would not cry, not now, not in front of everyone. Instead, she stood tall, head high, hand clasped in Damon's, and accepted their acknowledgement with grace. The ceremony continued with feasting and celebration, with political discussions and alliance formations, with all the complex machinery of pack governance operating at full force. Thea navigated it all with Margaret's training to guide her, finding that she was more capable than she had believed. She spoke with pack leaders, listened to their concerns, even offered opinions that were received with surprising respect. As the sun began to set, and the celebration showed no signs of ending, Damon leaned close and whispered in her ear, "There is one more thing we need to do tonight." "What is that?" Thea asked. "Your first shift," Damon said, his eyes gleaming with excitement. "The moon is full, the sacred grove will be at its most powerful, and your wolf is ready. I can feel it. Tonight, Thea, you become fully whole." Terror and exhilaration warred in Thea's chest. "Are you sure? What if something goes wrong?" "Nothing will go wrong," Damon said with absolute certainty. "I will be with you every step of the way. Trust me, Thea. Trust your wolf. Trust yourself." They slipped away from the celebration as it reached its peak, no one noticing or caring that the Alpha King and his mate had departed. They made their way through the moonlit forest to the sacred grove, the ancient trees welcoming them like old friends. In the center of the clearing, beside the spring that reflected the full moon perfectly, Damon turned to Thea. "Are you ready?" he asked one more time. Thea looked at him, at the man who had seen value in her when no one else did, who had defended her and protected her, and believed in her, even when she could not believe in herself. She thought about the wolf inside her, waiting patiently for decades to finally be free. She thought about the girl she had been, invisible and dismissed, and the woman she was becoming, strong and valued and whole. "Yes," she said firmly. "I am ready." "Then close your eyes," Damon instructed. "Reach for your wolf. Tell her it is time." Thea did as he said, sinking into that place inside herself, where her wolf waited. "It is time," she said to the presence there. "Time to be free. Time to run. Time to be who we truly are." "Finally," her wolf replied, and Thea felt power surging through her body, unlike anything she had ever experienced. Her bones began to shift and crack, but there was no pain, only a sense of rightness, of becoming. Fur sprouted across her skin, silver white like her gown, like moonlight made solid. Her senses exploded into full awareness, the world becoming sharper and more vivid than she had ever imagined. And then the transformation was complete. And Thea stood on 4 legs for the first time in her life, looking at the world through wolf eyes, feeling complete and powerful and free. She looked at Damon and saw him shift as well, becoming the massive black wolf from her dreams, and understanding flooded through her. He had been calling to her all along, even before they met. Their wolves had known, had been reaching for each other across distance and time. Damon's wolf approached her slowly, carefully, giving her time to adjust. He touched his nose to hers, and Thea felt the mate bond lock into place with a force that made her gasp. This was it. This was what she had been missing her entire life. Not just a wolf, but this connection, this completion, this sense of being exactly where she belonged. "Run with me," Damon's voice said in her mind, their bond allowing communication even in wolf form. Thea did not need to be asked twice. Together, they ran through the forest under the full moon, 2 wolves perfectly matched, their steps synchronized as if they had been running together for centuries instead of minutes. Thea felt joy exploding through her, felt freedom and power and possibility. She was not worthless. She was not nothing. She was strong and fast and beautiful, and she had a mate who saw her, truly saw her, and loved what he saw. They ran until the moon began to set, until exhaustion finally forced them to slow. They returned to the sacred grove and shifted back to human form, collapsing together on the soft moss, breathing hard and laughing with pure joy. "That was incredible," Thea said, unable to stop smiling. "That was the most incredible thing I have ever experienced." "That is who you are," Damon said, pulling her close against his side. "That is who you have always been, just waiting to emerge. A wolf of extraordinary beauty and strength, worthy to stand beside an alpha king. I am starting to believe you," Thea said. And this time, she really did believe. She believed that she had value, that she had power, that she had a place in this world and a destiny to fulfill. "Good," Damon said, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "Because tomorrow, we start your real training. Now that your wolf is awake, you need to learn to fight, to lead, to be the Luna Queen our people need." "Luna Queen," Thea repeated, testing the words. "That is what I am now?" "That is what you are," Damon confirmed. "My mate, my equal, my partner in ruling these packs. It will not be easy, and there will be those who continue to doubt you. But you have already proven you are capable of extraordinary transformation. The rest will come with time and practice." Thea nestled closer to him, feeling safe and cherished and seen in ways she had never thought possible. "Thank you," she whispered, "for finding me, for claiming me, for believing in me when no one else did. You do not need to thank me for recognizing what was always there," Damon said, "but you are welcome nonetheless." They stayed in the grove until dawn, holding each other, talking about the future, dreaming about the life they would build together. And when the sun finally rose, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Thea felt like she was being reborn. She was no longer the quiet, invisible girl everyone laughed at. She was Thea, Luna Queen, mate to the Alpha King, a wolf of power and strength and purpose. She had been nothing, and they had laughed at her. But the Alpha King had bowed before her, had seen her value, had awakened the power sleeping inside her. And now, everyone who had dismissed her, everyone who had mocked her, everyone who had told her she was worthless, would have to acknowledge the truth. She was extraordinary. She always had been. She had just needed someone to believe in her, long enough for her to start believing in herself. The journey ahead would be challenging. There would be enemies who would try. to use her perceived weaknesses against them. There would be moments of doubt and fear and struggle. But Thea was no longer alone. She had her wolf, she had her mate, and she had discovered the strength that had been inside her all along. They returned to the palace as the court was waking, walking hand in hand, both radiating a power and contentment that was impossible to miss. Thea saw the reactions, saw the double takes, saw the moment when people realized something fundamental had changed. She was not the uncertain girl from yesterday. She was the Luna Queen, fully awakened, and she belonged here. Word spread quickly through the palace. The Alpha King's mate had shifted. Her wolf was extraordinary, silver white and powerful, a match for the king's own strength. The doubters began to reconsider. The hostile began to retreat. The supporters grew bolder in their acceptance. Thea spent the morning with Damon, discussing plans for her training and integration into palace governance. She would learn combat from the best warriors, strategy from the wisest advisors, pack law from the most experienced judges. She would become, over time, the Luna Queen that the kingdom needed. But already, she was more than enough. At lunch, they ate together in the private dining room, stealing moments of affection between bites, simply enjoying being together. Thea found herself laughing, actually laughing, something she could not remember doing in years. "What is funny?" Damon asked, smiling. At the sound. "I was just thinking about Cassandra," Thea admitted. "About how certain she was that she should be sitting here instead of me. About how wrong she was, and how angry she must be right now. She will survive," Damon said, without much sympathy. Cassandra wanted power and status, not partnership or love. She would have been miserable as my mate, and I would have been miserable with her. The moon goddess knew what she was doing when she brought us together. "I believe that now," Thea said. "It took me a while, but I believe it. We are meant to be together." "Yes," Damon said simply. "We are." That afternoon, Thea's first combat training session began, and she discovered that having a wolf changed everything. She was stronger, faster, more coordinated than she had ever been. The moves that were taught to her came naturally, her body responding with an instinct she had never possessed before. The warriors who trained her were surprised and impressed, and Thea felt pride growing in her chest. She was capable. She was competent. She was not the burden she had feared she would be. Days turned into weeks, and Thea's transformation continued. She grew more confident in her role, more comfortable with the power she now wielded, more certain of her place beside Damon. She made friends among the court, allies who supported her not because they had to, but because they genuinely liked and respected her. She learned to navigate pack politics with increasing skill, using her unusual perspective as someone who had been at the bottom to identify and address concerns others missed. And through it all, her relationship with Damon deepened. What had started as a mate, bond ordained by the moon goddess, evolved into genuine love, built on respect and trust and shared dreams. They completed each other in ways that went beyond destiny, choosing each other daily, even though fate had already made its choice. One evening, several months after that first transformative night, Thea stood on the balcony of their shared quarters, looking out over the kingdom that was now partly hers to protect and guide. She thought about the girl she had been at Riverside, the one everyone had laughed at, the one who had believed she was nothing. That girl was gone, transformed not by magic, but by the courage to accept love, to believe in her own worth, to reach for the power that had always been sleeping inside her. Damon joined her on the balcony, wrapping his arms around her from behind and resting his chin on her shoulder. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "How far I have come," Thea said quietly. "How different my life is now compared to what it was. How grateful I am that you saw something in me worth claiming." "I saw what was always there," Damon reminded her. "You did the hard work of believing it yourself. We did it together," Thea corrected. "I could not have become this person without you." and I could not be the king I am meant to be without you. Beside me, Daemon replied. We make each other better, Thea. That is what true mates do. Thea turned in his arms to face him, reaching up to cup his face in her hands. I love you, she said, the words still feeling new and precious every time she spoke them. I love you too, Daemon replied, and kissed her with all the passion and tenderness that had become their language of affection. As they stood together under the stars, Luna Queen and Alpha King, two wolves who had found each other against all odds, Thea thought about the title she had been given when she left Riverside. They had laughed at the quiet girl. They had mocked her weakness, ridiculed her worthlessness, dismissed her completely, until the Alpha King bowed before her, saw her value, awakened her power. Now, no one laughed. Now they bowed. Now they understood that she had never been nothing. She had simply been waiting, like a seed buried in darkness, for the right moment to bloom. And bloom she had, into something more, beautiful and powerful than anyone could have imagined. The story of the girl they had laughed at, the girl the Alpha King chose, would be told for generations. It would become legend, a reminder that true value cannot be determined by others' opinions, that destiny will find a way no matter how many obstacles are placed in its path, that the moon goddess sees what others cannot. But for Thea, it was simply her life, her beautiful, extraordinary, impossible life, and she would live it with joy and strength and love, beside the mate who had seen her when no one else would, who had believed in her when she could not believe in herself, who had helped her become the woman she was always meant to be. They laughed at the quiet girl, until the Alpha King bowed before her. And then, the real story began.